Yes, sir. So, a topic of discussion is this critical race theory, and should it be taught in schools, especially in elementary schools? Because I never heard about it until this year, to be honest with you. If you're not on the media, social media, and shit like that, you're not going to really be hearing about all of these liberal talking points just to make Caucasians feel guilty about half history, narratives, racial bias, white privilege, shit like that. It's going to be very imperative on parents, specifically black parents, quote unquote, to consider homeschooling their children. You can't expect your oppressors, as you call them, pro-blacks, to teach your children full history, to be wanting to teach your children what you want them to teach them. What did you learn in public school to where you're still relying on the public school to teach your children? It just doesn't work out that way. Like I said, parents are going to have to consider homeschooling their children because with all of these super liberal, toxic agendas, ideologies that are getting pushed to your children, all of this shit just doesn't matter. We really got to figure out what's important, what's what, and what's not, and stop relying on the government to save your life. But the viewless view got Condoleeza Rice, and she's going to talk about it.
In the midterms, and one of the key issues up for debate is how much of a voice parents should have in their child's school curriculum, especially when it comes to...
What kind of question is that? Parents got to really understand that they basically just look at you as just basically the overseers of the children, but the children are property of the state. How much say you have in your own children's lives? You should have 100%, but these people don't feel like that.
Subjects like sex education and critical race theory. I thought they didn't teach critical race theory until they went to like law school or something.
That's right.
I sure hope not, because I'm not certain 7-year-olds need to learn it.
It just sounds crazy to me.
Does,
But the question is, do parents need more influence here, or should they leave the lesson planning to the pros?
Well, I was a teacher, and there is...
Oh, Joyless Joy was a teacher? That's all the proof you need. This super toxic senior citizen was a former teacher. Like I said before, a good amount of these teachers are miserable, underpaid, and they're paying off student debt. They don't give a damn about your children. They kick your children out if they're having a bad day. Imagine being taught about quote unquote white privilege from a blonde biology teacher. I'd be doing anything in my power to get kicked out. You got teachers like Joy. You already see what she's about now. She'll do anything for a check. She doesn't give a fuck about what's being taught to your children, like majority of these teachers.
Curriculum that teachers follow, and it's studied by supposedly experts. I have a lot of education credits because you learn how to teach and you learn your subject. So you can't really pit that up against a parent who just is annoyed that you're teaching, To Kill a Mockingbird or whatever the curriculum says. You can't have the parents interfering to that extent in the curriculum.
Why not? When that curriculum is going to interfere with how their child is going to be thinking, with their subconscious and whatnot. What is the importance of reading To Kill a Mockingbird? These are the questions parents should be asking. They have to ask. And if they don't want to ask, then you need to figure out what you're going to do with your child. Period, point blank. They want to raise your children. They want to condition your children to groupthink, to think one way, to become a sheep. Nothing more, nothing less. Why don't they encourage children to search out their passion? What satisfies their soul? They're not worried about that. They don't want them to become artists or CEOs, entrepreneurs and shit like that. They either want them to fill up the prison. They either want them to fill up the workforce.
But it's nice to hear from them. But if they are adamant and they don't want you to teach what is going to be taught, period, they're going to have to homeschool their kids because this is not...
People need to homeschool their children now more than ever. More than ever, to where you can monitor how much your child is going to be on a tablet, to when you could look at the curriculum for yourself, to when we already understand a good amount of people already went to public school. What did you learn? What did you carry from public school to your life into the future, bruh? Math? What did learning trigonometry do for you working at Best Buy? calculus. The list goes on into all of these irrelevant studies. People that we watch on ESPN in the spelling bee, majority of them, if not all of them, were homeschooled. All of those students from the Far East and all of those places across seas, homeschooled. Why do you feel like they are more focused? Because the teacher is solely focused on them. They have no distractions around them, meaning goofballs and class clowns. People relying on stay 9.5s, stay 9.8s to where you're separating students already. Then you want to combine them, have male and female competing with each other already. The list goes on into these globalist, communist schools, man. Conditioning.
Gonna wash.
Well, they're actually homeschooling them in increasing numbers. And I think that's a signal. First of all, parents ought to be involved in their children's
Yes, they should.
education. Their children are in school 7 hours. That's a very formative period. And I think parents ought to have a say. We used to have parent-teacher conferences. We used to have PTAs. There are lots of ways for parents to be involved, and they should be. But if I could take a moment to talk about the whole issue of critical race theory and what is and is not being taught. I come out of an academic institution, and this is something that academics debate, what is the role of race and so forth. And let me be very clear. I grew up in segregated Birmingham, Alabama. I couldn't go to a movie theater or to a restaurant with my parents. I went to segregated schools till we moved to Denver. My parents never thought I was going to grow up in a world without prejudice, but they also told me that's somebody else's problem, not yours. You're going to
Facts. And too many people don't have stern parents that are going to direct their children in the right way to make them critically think, to make them not become a victim. And that's all these super liberal agendas and ideologies are doing to pro-blacks and the rest of the masses, teaching you to become a victim. Oh my God, it's because of slavery. That's why I'm held back. It's because of white privilege that I didn't get this job. It's because of white supremacy that I can't make it up out of the mud. It's because of all of this bullshit. It's because of you, motherfucker. It's not because of all of these narratives and half history that's holding you back. That's what is creating is a victim mentality, and that shit is taking over the masses, man. A lot of people are becoming terminally ill with becoming a victim. A lot of people wake up out of the day, they get a cup of coffee, they go on social media, and they try to figure out how can they make the quote unquote white people on their feed feel guilty again. Talking about, man, it doesn't matter if you feel uncomfortable about history when a lot of these people don't even really know history.
Come it, and you are going to be anything you want to be. And that's the message that I think we ought to be sending to kids. One of the worries that I have about the way that we're talking about race is that it either seems so big that somehow white people now have to feel guilty for everything that happened in the past. I don't think that's very productive. Or black people have to feel disempowered by race. I would like black kids to be completely empowered, to know that they are beautiful in their blackness, but in
whatever the fuck that means. There's no such thing as quote unquote blackness. There's no race such as quote unquote black. That's a color out the crayon box. So when we understand true history, we're going to understand this. There's no such thing as black. That's why we always keep hearing about black and white, because pro-blacks are not going to feel validated or fulfilled until the white side comes through and completes them, like the yin and yang sign. That's why everything is, oh my gosh, if a white person would have did this, they would have got through with that. Oh my goodness, if a white... All of that fuckery, sitting on the fucking hamster wheel when it comes down to race politics, because you're never going to go nowhere because we don't understand true history. Black is not a race. It's not history. It's not an origin. It's not a culture. It's no language. Nothing.
order to do that, I don't have to make white kids feel bad for being white. So somehow this is a conversation that has gone in the wrong direction.
Too many people are getting a high going on social media, getting that hit of dopamine, making quote unquote Caucasians feel guilty about some bullshit that they don't even know the context of. Keep talking about these police. Keep talking about shit that you getting from Sean King's page. All of these tragic mulattoes to make people feel guilty for you. Stop projecting.
That last part you don't have to watch.
Yeah, you know, there's a little bit of it in order for black kids who, quite frankly, for a long time, the way they were portrayed, the way their history was portrayed, it was second-class citizenship.
Of course.
But I don't have to make...
Especially when you want to go by quote-unquote black or quote-unquote African-American. You're not going to be considered a citizen when you want to go by those two social statuses.
White children feel bad about being white in order to overcome the fact that black children were...
How does that happen? Well, I have a couple examples here, actually.
Yeah.
In Cupertino, California, in an elementary school, third graders are instructed to rank themselves based on their power and their privilege. California's Department of Education is proposing to eliminate opportunities for accelerated math in the name of equity. In Greenwich, a white bias survey is handed out to 7th grade English class.
In Greenwich? Miss me with that bullshit. Nobody in Connecticut gives a damn about race, man. We see all of this white guilt from all of these white liberals that want to post little virtue signals, black circles, want to go to races and riots and shit like that. But none of them are cutting a fucking check. Miss me.
A New York private school is separating by race, gender, and ethnicity. White identifying group met with a white consultant who displayed a slide that named supposed characteristics of white supremacy. An equity statement from the school district of Palm Beach County outlined the initiative dismantling structures rooted in white advantage. It's happening across the country.
Well, but again, if you have a teacher, history is going to be taught.
Yeah.
This is what happens in time after time after time after time. There is a certain selection of people that will be in rulership. Period. You either gonna be conquered or you gonna conquer. That's it. It's not about no fucking white supremacy, quote unquote. If you believe in that, that means you believe that quote unquote white people remain supreme over you. You believe that you are inferior to these people. And that's what's wrong with pro-blacks, all these pan-Africans, the people that call the black woman God, all of these goofballs. They believe that the white man is God to them. Nothing more, nothing less. If you want to call yourself a king or a queen, how are you marching, protesting, begging for equality? Shouldn't you be trying to overthrow the throne? These people, these pro-blacks do not understand that if you were in quote unquote rulership or if you had some type of power, wouldn't you try to put your own people on first before people of other demographics?
History is going to be taught. And as we were talking earlier, you know, when you go to Texas, you talk to Mexican kids who feel like crap because they're being told they're less than because of the Alamo. The whole idea of teaching history is so we don't repeat it. So I think that if you're a good teacher, you don't teach to make a white kid feel bad. You're supposed to say, listen, you didn't do any of this, but you should know what happened. And make sure, along with black kids and Native American kids and all the colors that be in school.
I have no problem with letting people know what happened.
Yes.
But let's remember, history is complex. Right?
It is.
Human beings aren't angels now, and they weren't angels in the past.
No.
And so how we teach about our history is also important.
But you have to, there's no way to hide the fact that white people owned black people. There's no way to hide that.
There's no way to hide the fact that it happened on the other foot. And that's what's not being told. That's what's being hidden. And that's what's not being understood. Pro-blacks, pan-Africans, African Americans, quote unquote, whatever you want to call yourself, only are getting taught that they come from slaves. They don't understand true history. It's being half taught to you. You want to believe that you're a king and a queen. How the fuck can you understand that when you truly believe that you came from slaves? We don't even understand where the word slave comes from. We don't even understand that Caucasians were slaves also. You know what I'm saying? But we want to keep talking about these same narratives that's been going on and perpetuated since the land before time, whatever.
That's
been an issue that there's been this sort of rollback of history. People want to hide history.
Oh, I don't.
And,
Come
well,
now.
yes, that is true.
About 45
and
seconds,
and
guys.
and what we are seeing is this rollback of history. Parents don't want children to hear about the real history. And when we teach children about the real history, I think that is when we will really have true racial reconciliation.
People are being taught the true history, but I just have to say one more thing. It goes back to how we teach the history.
That's what I'm saying.
We teach the good and we teach the bad of history.
Yep,
But
right.
what we don't do is make 7 and 10-year-olds feel that they are somehow bad people because of the color of their skin. We've been through that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we don't need to do that
But
again.
we don't want
for
anybody
anyone.
to feel that.
Precisely.
That's the idea.
That doesn't seem to be part of the plan.
Oh, it
No.
is part of the plan.
I mean,
I'm
you know,
sorry.
in Germany, they teach the Holocaust to every student.
Of course.
I've met a German
And
girl
we
one
teach
time,
slavery to
and
every student.
A school trip is a trip to Auschwitz or Dachau.
Yes.
They learn about their history, and there is not two sides to the story.
We all have to learn about our history, but
Yes.
we also have
I
to
don't see what there are two sides to every
recognize that
story.
we have to
There's
live
not two
together,
sides.
and we're going to do better living together.
And that's basically where they want to cut it off and go to commercial break because it was about to get heated. Like I said before, quote unquote, Black Americans need to consider strongly homeschooling their children in this day and age, especially when they want to dumb down your child, have them operate on a low vibration, worried about agendas, ideologies, have history and narratives, identity politics, all that bullshit that's just going to do nothing but stunt their growth. You know what I'm saying? Yo, man, this is just a bunch of bullshit, man. I'm out.